right, before we open the public hearing, I believe we have a statement from our attorney, Mr. Held.
To assist the public in this particular kind of proceeding, which is a quasi-judicial proceeding for a conditional use application, the board is supposed to make its decision based upon what's called competent substantial evidence. There's certain criteria that are being analyzed by them, has been presented by staff, and the architect goes to satisfy competent substantial evidence. As far as citizen testimony is concerned, it's supposed to be what's called fact-based and not just generalized statements of opposition. So this is to help you present your testimony to the board in a way that it can be accepted legally for them to make their decision. Thank you.
All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, before we open the public hearing, there are some protocol issues I'd like to go over for each of you. Basically, this is, I suspect it's the first time most of you have been to the Planning Commission. Is that a fair statement to make? Have some of you appeared here before? Okay, well, here's what you need to remember. First, it's a board of record. As such, one person speaks at a time. Whether you agree or disagree, no catcalling, no loud discussions, no applause, because if so, then the record is incomplete. If the record is incomplete, it may invalidate some aspects of the hearing. Second, bear in mind the Planning Commission makes a recommendation. That is all we do. And this is a preliminary plan. Therefore, consider your comments as practice for when you will appear before the City Council to raise your issues. So think twice. Try not to be redundant. Pay attention to what's being said. Once it's been read into the record, that is generally sufficient. So plan your strategy as you approach this and be prepared to make your comments. Please don't be emotional. This is business. You'll get 3 minutes to speak, all of you who wish to speak. We recognize this will be a lengthy evening. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to make certain that every citizen who desires to be read into the record will have the opportunity to do so. So, having said that, Ms. Boulay, I believe you've indicated you need to leave. Is that true? You have to go to work?
I do.
All right, let the record reflect that Ms. Boulay did arrive, and unfortunately at this point, she needs to excuse herself to return to work.
May I say something before?
May you?
May I say something before?
Yes, you may. You may.
Okay. I just wanted to make a statement before I leave. I understand all the concerns of the community. I saw some of the faces with certain things that were said. Some were in agreement and some definitely weren't. As members of this community, as someone who grew up in North Miami, all over North Miami, I lived in one house for 20 some odd years, but grew up around the area and this area in specific. I understand the concerns. However, we would like to invite innovative projects into the community. And if these developers are willing to hear you out and put forth or help you realize whatever vision that you have for this project in conjunction with the vision they have for the project, hear them out. We definitely want to see our neighborhoods thriving. And just as we always compare our neighborhoods to what Coconut Grove is doing or they aren't doing, and what Sunny Isles is doing and they're not doing, and all these other thriving communities, we tend to compare ourselves to them, but we're not really doing anything to innovate our communities. So my statement or my suggestion would be to work with the developers, hear them out, see what they actually do have planned for this project. And if after the final plans are drawn, then you make an informed decision as to whether you want this in your community or in your neighborhood or not. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Belay. Yes, do keep in mind, we're not doing site planning here tonight. We are here to address a couple of issues and make long-term recommendations. Thank you, Ms. Belay. You are excused. All right, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to commence the public hearing. We have two podiums, and we welcome you to line up on either side of the aisle. You each will have 3 minutes. You are required, since this is a board of record, to state your name and your address. We have to identify yourself and say where you're living, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, 2 minutes. Oh, I'm corrected on that. You're only getting 2 minutes. My apologies.
3 was a lot better.
Yes, we'd probably be here till the sun came up if we actually went with 3. So we're going to go 2 minutes.
Before my clock starts, on the North Miami site, of the 6 people listed on the Planning Commission, of the 9 people listed on the Planning Commission, 6 of them, their terms ended last May. 3 of them are on terms till 2019. So I'm questioning the actual authority of this commission to make a recommendation of any kind. You have 6 people that terms ended last May.
Mr. Held.
Have all these people been reappointed?
We have no idea. You have to tell us. We're still here.
I can tell you I was.
Well, we'll note your objection for the record.
I want it in the record.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Objection is duly noted. Now, sir, we're going to open the public hearing.
Okay. Richard Anise, 13030 Northeast 10th Avenue. I'll attack the parking first. If you're allowed a 5% override for visitor parking based on 90 spaces, that gives you 4.5 visitor spots. If you got 67 units and everybody has 2 cars, because if you're spending $250,000 or $300,000, you're not going to be taking the bus or a bike. You're going to have 2 vehicles. So if everybody's got 67 units, 2 vehicles, 134, you're 44 spaces short right off the bat. And if you got 5 visitor spots, they're going to be used up all the time. Now, the fact that you're saying you're going to tell the people not to park on the swale of the property, which you have no swale, they're going to park on the swale of all of the neighbors in the neighborhood. Code says I can't stop anyone from parking on my swale, but it also says you can't have more than 2 vehicles on your swale. Except when there's an election and 6 cars park on my swale, I can't stop them, and I could be cited for more than 2 vehicles on my swale. So you're going to have parking in the swale no matter what. I don't know what kind of sewer study you've done, but our city says we have a very bad sewer system. We're constantly changing pipes, and every year we're spending $1 million to put new pipes here and there. You put a force main on 131st Street. I don't know how you're going to have 125 toilets flushing into the sewer system that's going to not affect it. Traffic study, I don't know what traffic study you did, but they're putting 2 traffic circles on 10th Avenue, one on my corner and the 131st and one on 123rd because of the traffic flow. You got 12th Avenue already has a traffic circle, so you're going to have people moving off at 12th and 10th to come to 9th, besides the fact that you're going to add 134 more cars here. So I don't know how your studies are allowing all of this.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker, sir.
Good evening. My name is Chris Zangrilli. My address is 875 Northeast 127th Street, 2 blocks from here. I have a master's degree in urban planning. I'm a professional planner. I used to work for the City of Miami Planning Department. With 10 years experience in this field, this is the single worst example of poor planning policy that I have ever seen. It violates nearly every single tenet of sound planning practices that we have. I only found out about this on Sunday night, and when I looked into it, I was shocked and floored. What we have here is the definition of spot zoning. This is the example you see in textbooks. And you all know spot zoning is illegal. This is spot zoning, plain and simple, under the guise of a conditional use permit. This eliminates the zoning code. This zoning map will become obsolete if this happens. They're asking for a 1,200% density increase on a single family neighborhood lot. This is unheard of. How can this possibly be recommended for approval? 12 times density increase without a zoning change, surrounded on all sides by single family homes. This is what the entire field of urban planning is designed to prevent. This is why we have zoning codes, to prevent apartment towers from going up in the middle of single family homes. The staff analysis is literally cut and paste from the developer's letter of intent. Who does the planning department work for? According to what I'm reading, it's verbatim in a lot of cases, and it's in the public record. I think this is brazen. Most of the conclusions that you will hear about on that report are preposterous. To borrow a phrase, you're reading nothing but alternative facts, and what they're saying is summarily incorrect. What is to stop anyone from buying all the single-family homes in this area at market rate and building residential towers? Why is it still zoned single-family? When you go for a rezoning, you usually go to the next level up. If you don't mind, I'd like another person's time since I'm one of the few people here.
I can't do that. You have your 2 minutes, sir. We need to give every person here the opportunity to speak if
This board needs to reject this without question, and we need to go back and look at this NRO in detail. This has to be in violation with the comp plan, with the CRA. There's no way that this can fly. We can review every conclusion made by the staff. Is this what happens when nobody is looking? Not only should this be
Yeah,
immediately
thank you, sir.
rejected.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but we have to allow time for everybody. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rachel Levy, and I live at 13055 Northeast 10th Avenue. Our property was bought as an investment for us, and so long-term, this won't affect me, but I do want to bring a few questions out. First of all, it's a beautiful property. I am not in support of it, but I do have a couple questions. Looking at the property values in the area, especially what we bought our house at and what we expect to sell it at, it doesn't quite add up, the values of these homes as well as the parking allotment. A concern for me is that if these are not going to be a lower income housing, how can the request for or the assumed cost of the houses be supported? And how can we be assured that these condos are not actually able to be bought out by a bigger business, thus turning it into an actual rental property? That's something that I think is a major concern, because at that point, let's say that this is built, that we don't have anyone able to spend the actual requested cost of $250,000 to $300,000 per unit. That's going to drive those costs down, which is then going to cause maybe a bigger business to come in and buy these and then be able to get the rent lower. I'm sure that the city can figure those things out, but for me, that's, the gentlemen have already, addressed enough issues, but that's my biggest concern.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir?
Good evening. My name is Michael Brown. I live at 895 Northeast 129th Street.
Hold that, sir. Can we reset the clock, please? Go ahead, sir.
I live at 895 Northeast 129th Street. My property is separated from this new development by one property between us. I will have 30 units from a 6-story building looking directly into my pool and backyard. I have 8-year-old twins at home. I did not buy a house in a residential community to have my privacy and my security overtaken. For some developer to come in here and make a bunch of money while my house loses value. I strongly reject the traffic report. I'm not sure if whoever did this analysis realizes that 10th Avenue was closed off at 135th Street several years back. That has increased the traffic flow on 9th Avenue dramatically. Another concern for my kids, my safety pulling out of my driveway. These cars rip through the stop sign, speed down there constantly, every day, and that's only going to multiply. Drop-off zone at this new place has been in question earlier. I have trucks lined up down our road with the new Amazon, FedEx, UPS. How is that going to be dealt with let alone normal traffic and normal drop-offs, with an increase of trucks coming through up and down that road? Lastly, this may meet the standards of this NRO. I'm sorry, I don't understand all this terminology, but does that make that right? To put that in our community of residential houses? These guys are very proud that they're only going for 67 units and they could get 90. I think that's an absurd amount. Put 10 townhouses up. We do want houses or some structures to go there, but not a 6-story building looking into my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next. Staff, can we get some assistance here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You have to talk into them, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay. Technicality.
Right.
My name's Robert Page.
Hold on, can we reset the
I
clock,
reside
please?
at 910.
Hold on. Reset the clock, please. Okay, go ahead.
I reside at 910 Northeast 130th Street, which is a corner lot directly to the southeast of this complex. Now, I could be wrong, but I thought I heard them say that the drop-off was going to be at 910 Northeast 130th Street. That's going to be my front yard. And that's on the east side of 9th Avenue, so that doesn't make sense to me. And another thing, that 130th Street is no outlet on the west side by Dixie. The only way you can get out is to go east on 130th Street, which brings every single car right across my front yard. And it's bad enough now. 9th Avenue is horrible. The city has done nothing to relieve the traffic on 9th Ave. They put traffic calming circles in other places. They have radar telling you you're going too fast on 8th Avenue, but they haven't done anything on 9th Avenue. So I don't see how this is going to be any better. It's going to be worse.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, can somebody address what I just said about the drop-off? Can I ask them a question?
I think there's a misunderstanding. We said it would be at the corner of the property inside our property. So if you heard 910, that's just a mistake.
What else did you guys tell me that might be wrong?
Sir, I think I think you misheard. No one said at 910. 910 is across 9th Avenue from us. It's not on our property. The drawing shows that. I think you misheard something that someone said. It's not at 910. The drop-off is on our property, inside our property. You pull in, and then there's a feature, and it's a drop-off. Nobody said 910. Sorry if you heard that.
I'm sorry.
Well, but you did ask for the clarification, sir.
Okay, but I am a little bit older, and I do have a little hard of hearing, but I know what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir.
He's going to go
You're
first.
going to let him go first? All
Evening.
right, sir. State your name and
Tanjim
address for the
Hossain,
record.
900 Northeast 129th Street, 1 block from this property. As my fellow neighbors have just discussed, and as we heard this evening, city staff is recommending to the council approval of this development, which, as I believe most of us are here to speak about, would tear apart the fabric of our neighborhood. As we know, it's zoned for 5 units currently, and we're asking for a 1,340% increase, is what it sounds like to me. Now, I do appreciate the fact that the commission asked for a fact-based testimony, and so that I do not cover the same points that we've already heard, I want to reflect back to the earlier staff report, which mentioned the 11 criteria that had to be met, and I believe those were not discussed by staff because it was too much detail to be discussed in such short of a time. I understand that. However, we neighbors have gotten together, gone over those 11 criteria, and made a line-by-line criticism of each of those items. I understand I don't have the time to go over each of those 11 points, but I'd be glad to share those with you this evening. I'll just glance. Can I submit that into evidence? Is that acceptable? All right. Can I do that right after?
You can submit documentation to support your position, sir.
I'll submit this shortly. I'll just glance over a few of the items on here. For example, we talk about transition. There is no transition. A couple foot setback is not a transition. I think that's a blatant fallacy. We talk about things like the environmental mitigation plan. I know, Mr. Architect, you mentioned some of the live oaks. There's also flamboyant, gumbo limbo, other native hardwood species. on the property. Yeah, you cannot relocate such large species. I also see the landscape plan proposes clusia, white stoppers, and other small understory native plants to replace those. That is not sufficient. Other common sense, really, this whole thing just does not pass the smell test, and we have evidence here to support.
All right, you may submit your documentation. Make that part of the staff report.
Before I start, can I frame this so that I can address the council better and actually show you?
You may do so if you wish. Yeah, let me see how we work that out. Hold on, sir. The report you were given from the witness, is it in the hands of the secretary?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Belay would like to take a look at that. All right, sir, go ahead. You have your 2 minutes.
Thank you. And before I get started, first of all, thank you very much, council members. I just wanted to echo the fact that not only were you guys asleep at the wheel, but I went and visited about 120 of my neighbors, and they're really great people. And I never knew they lived in my neighborhood, but they never knew that this project was even happening. So that's the first thing that I would like to say, is that the city isn't representing us properly and letting us know really what's happening, because if it wasn't for a few people getting out, none of us would be here. Additionally, I'd like to state for the record that the letter of intent mirrors the staff report almost verbatim, and there seems to be some type of, I don't know if it's supposed to be like this, but it's too close to be two separate parties. My name is Mark Ivanis. I live at 875 Northeast 130th Street. And I'm actually, if you want a street report, I live across the street from where this property is going to be built. It's a one-way road.
Into the microphone, sir, otherwise they can't record the voice.
It's a one-way?
Yep.
Hello, check 1, 2.
Can you,
Make sure that I have my time, please.
well, it worked before.
Just move this. There's another one. You got a minute.
All right, give him 1 additional minute.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I live directly. Hello, check 1, 2. Okay, directly across from where this parking garage is going to exit. I watch probably 40 to 60 cars come down this one-way street every day, turn around, and some of them turn around, but some of them just continue on and then make an illegal turn left and right. So I'm just wondering what that's going to be like when we have 92 cars coming out. Additionally, I don't see any area here for a garbage truck to come and pick up garbage from any of these units. So that means the garbage truck is going to pull up in front of my house and pull out, I imagine this has to be 5 to 10 dumpsters of trash every 2 to 3 days. And they're going to come and they're going to service this at my house, in front of my house, or in front of my neighbor's house. Additionally, where are 67 moving trucks going to come in and unload furniture? Are they going to do that here at the entrance on 9th Avenue and 130th Street, a one-way road? I don't see the plausibility and how something of this size even merits being in this neighborhood. And I ask for all of you as council members to think, would you allow this across the street from your house? And I think that's really the takeaway here, and I hope something that you guys will all realize. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Rodriguez. I live at 1070 Northeast 130th Street. There's a lot of compelling reasons to want the NRO. There's a lot of compelling reasons to seek development, to seek revitalization. The city needs that. It deserves that. And it deserves something better than this. This neighborhood deserves better than this. You've already identified many concerns. You've already said these things should have come to us better. The reason there are concerns is because this is not a fact-based presentation. This is fiction. That drawing is a fiction. Those details of parking is a fiction. You've identified the shortcomings, many already just in this hearing. Those fictions, those problems will only increase as the architectural process goes through what's called value engineering, where they, for lack of a better word, dumb down the creation. What you get in that spot is not going to look anything like this picture. It's not going to look anything like that. It's a fiction that 90 cars can service 67 units, including 58 two-bedrooms. You know that. It's a fiction that 90 cars can fit in those parking spaces without all kinds of problems. It's a fiction that a 600-something square foot unit is going to sell for $200,000. You can buy a house on a half-acre lot for $200,000. It is a fiction that this project can be done well in this tiny space without driving down the surrounding property values. It is a fiction that this project can be done well by this developer and this architect, no offense, but according to his own website, has no experience in towers of any substantial building of this kind. Lots of times we have the power, in conclusion, lots of times we have the power and the ability to do things, and that doesn't mean that we should do them. There will be a time for development in this space, but this first project, this first proposal is not the one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Gentlemen, first of all,
Reset the clock
Oh.
first. Hold on. Okay, go ahead, sir.
my name is Philip Cookris. I've been here at 985 Northeast 129th Street for 58 years, 4 blocks away from this project. Most of you gentlemen I know. And Mike, I'd like to thank you for being honest. And Mr. Pension, I'd like you to thank you for being honest. Number one, why didn't we get a notice of this in the mail like they do an unincorporated date? I can't help it if the business, the buyer, overpaid. When the residential restrictions expire, how fast we'll be able to rent out these properties? If the condos don't sell, can the builder rent out like they did with 13200 Northeast 7th Avenue? The tax for the city's great, yes, but then we're going to lose tax revenues on the devaluation of the single-family home values across from 131st Street and Northeast 7th Avenue and 132nd and Northeast 7th Avenue. Those high-rises have lowered the prices of those single-family homes in that on 131st Street and 132nd. That's why I was able to buy a half a block so cheap 15 years ago because of those buildings. In 5 years, it will not look like Northeast 7th Avenue because the litter, the hanging out, the drug dealers, the gunfire, the clothing on the balconies. How many people have already heard gunfire at night? My daughter, 17, can tell a 9mm report from a .45 report. Thank you, North Miami. Traffic. People will be stopping in the street, blocking traffic more than the usual stopping in the middle of the street to load and unload people. The city's sewers and water upgrades, we just paid $40 extra for 2 years. Who's going to pay for the upgrades for this building? Because we're certainly going to need it. And I actually bought a building one time with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit, and it had 13 people living in that 2-bedroom. This is a terrible idea for this area. JT just bought his house a year ago. He's already been broken into. Okay? John gets his trucks broken into all the time. And at night, I disconnect the batteries from my vans. This is really a bad idea. Thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, next. This is your opportunity. We urge you to come forward, make your positions known.
Thank you. Rob Borden. Address is 890 Northeast 129th Street. I'm 47 years old. That's the only house I've ever lived in. On the record, that was built by my great-grandfather, and I bought it from my parents. So one of the reasons why I've lived there so long is because it's a community and where we live. This project does not belong there. Like everybody else has said very eloquently, it feels like this has been ramrodded and pushed down our throats. I appreciate some of the candor by the commissioners that feel this kind of the same way, to where this is kind of out of the blue. Again, it's a good process. It's a good thought. This is not the right time and place. Again, for the record, I'm against this.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker.
My name is Gene Smith, 1961 Northeast, 129th Street. It's too much to lose to gain. Too much to lose to gain. Whatever we said, the investor not going to care about us. But what I see, if that happen, it will be a catastrophe for the community. Even the police department will have big trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
My name is Federico Zapata. I live 3301 Northeast First Avenue. Over a year ago, I bought the property on 127 and 8th Avenue, 3 blocks away from this. I'm building the house for myself. By practice, I'm an architect. I work for a developer called Tom Berry. I've been in the development business for 4 years, and I just found out about this project last night by my neighbor, because I feel as a developer you need to have a connection with the community and your neighbors. When I approach building of the lot, definitely as a builder you want to maximize your profit and you want to maximize what you can build in this lot. But what I look at it also as an architect is how you fit your project within the community, how you feel with it, the immediate urban fabric of your area. Definitely this is a project that if it gets built will be detrimental to the area, and I'll definitely propose that the developer considers a density reduction, maybe going to townhouses, 3 levels, that can be more easily be integrated while keeping density, but will be more affordable and integrated to the community. Let me tell you, I have done analysis of how much, maybe if I did, when I finish my property, which I'm finishing in 2 weeks, how much I can sell it. Being a single family, I'm not looking more than that 350,000. I don't know how a 900 square foot apartment can be sold for 300,000. I definitely don't see how the market can sustain building this project. Definitely, I will take a look at the parking requirements. Living in downtown area, tandem parking is only proposed by the ballet and managed by ballet people. Definitely, we're not gonna have ballet. So I consider reduction of the density of this project.
All right, thank you, sir. Next speaker.
William Previtel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. The objections have been well vented this evening, and I certainly have heard them, I respect them, and I sympathize with those who have had certain objections. What I'd like to do, if I may have your permission, is to try to go through an academic exercise, a counterpoint of what it is that might be positive about this project. I'm not saying yes or no. I have no skin in this game. But I'd like to say, from starting at a larger scale, I'd like to point out that our city has had little or no positive development since 2000. We've had about 600 units, about one major building since the year 2000, a generation. What we've seen is subsidized housing and approvals, which has brought down everybody's property value. Yes, we need it in our community, but we also need something on the upper end. I see a project that doesn't try to shoehorn everything in. There are a lot of details that do need to be worked out, certainly there are. Yet this is a project where they really tried to break down the scale somewhat sensitively. They are agreeing to do the landscaping, but if you look at this rendering, they had the guts enough to show what they're proposing, that it actually holds up on its own. How many times have you seen renderings where they just take something, some dog of a building or a project, and they just cover it over with plantings and you get fooled by that? They're showing the bare building, and certainly they're agreeing to be much more in their landscaping. We have a team here that seems to be very amenable, incredibly positive compared to all the teams I've seen when I sat 10 years on the planning board here in North Miami, and that they seem to be accommodating for so many of the wishes here. I see opportunities for the neighborhood, the people that are probably most concerned, the properties immediately adjacent to it, to not only have that wall and that vegetation, but I would guess that these developers would even invite or welcome or offer to plant on your property, I would bet, with a waiver, of course, to plant some vegetation right on the property to increase that. So please consider that there are some positives to this that we might be able to look at the positives and maybe get the best out of for both worlds and actually make this a magnet for your community to actually raise the value of your neighborhood, which it really could do.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, next speakers, please come forward and take your positions.
Evening, Council. My name is John Lassiter, and my office is at 865 Northeast 130th Street. Most of my concerns have already been spoken, but I just wanted to get on record that I'm against it. And we've got plenty of low-rise development that's a problem already. I'm born and raised, you know, a block away from where the building is. My office is in the house, my brother's first home, so I've been there a long time. And, you know, I understand the concept, it looks good, but my belief is it's a pipe dream. Because if these things don't sell for the price that they're asking, ultimately they've got to be rented or sold, and I just see it being the same thing that we already have. If it was over where his building is, and they built some nice thing on the water, that's where you're going to attract and get people that are going to spend tons of money. But in a residential area, I just don't see it. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Mercedes Castillo. I've been living at 1135 Northeast 131st Street for about 14 years. And I've seen the changes throughout the time that I've lived here. It's a very small community. It's a single-family home community. Although we are surrounded somehow for smaller developments, you know, small apartment buildings, very scaled down, 2-3 floors, and probably, I don't know, 15 apartments. We do have an issue with all the surrounding apartment buildings with parking, and they're always spilling all over the swales and the streets. Obviously, crime is an issue in those areas. And although we do need improvement in the city and in our community, I appreciate the new possible building or something that will bring positive aspects to the city or to our community specifically. But I don't think this fits within the area that is proposed. Maybe consider another area that will actually call people to come and spend the money that you are trying to collect on your investment. So, but really, in the area that is destined right now, I don't see a fit. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker. Move along now, people, or we'll be here till the sun rises. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Juliana Bage. I live at 910 Northeast 130th Street. My husband already came up and spoke. I just wanted to tackle one issue that didn't come up that I was kind of questioning. Maintenance fees. They're paying so much for their condos. They're buying their parking lot. And now what are they going to charge for maintenance fees to keep up with what they're going to do with their landscaping and everything else? Because when you have a homeowners association and they are on a budget, they're not going to maintain that building like it was first built and landscape. So that's one of my concerns, because I live directly across the street from this building. It'll be facing me. And I'm on the record to say I am against it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak to this issue? Second call. Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
We get to close, Mr. Chair?
after we close the public hearing. We have someone in the back wishing to speak. Sir, please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Owens Jesper. I would live at 1080 Northeast 130th Street, a couple of blocks down before this development is going to be done. I've been in my house over 11 years now. I was hoping that somebody would give us the information what's going on. There was a neighbor that came by and let me know that it was happening. I don't think it's fair to the community that we find out this way. At the beginning of this process, everyone should have known what was going on in order for us to give some information out. I don't think this development is good for our community. Townhomes maybe, single-family homes maybe, but this right here is just a gigantic piece of building for our community. We need something better, and we hope that the council will be able to give some kind of emotional support for the community so that we get something better. And I thank for the time that you give me.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Good evening. My name is Connie Simonoff, Siemonof. I live at 950 Northeast 130th Street, about 4 houses down from this proposed building. Everything that's been voiced already tonight, I totally agree with. I have been in my house for probably 60 years. I've raised my 2 children there. They've attended North Miami Senior High, Junior High, William Jennings Bryan. I love North Miami. And we do need a lot of revitalization of some sort in our city. And I know, because I've been there for so many years, I know that we have tried over and over again to bring something into our city that will revitalize it. The downtown area has all of these antique stores now and art stores. I'm not sure if those are really relevant to the community or to people who live in our area or not. But definitely this does not belong in a residential area. One other thing I'm really upset about tonight, I teach, I've been teaching for 33 years, and I teach young children, 4 and 5-year-olds. If I ran my classroom, and I'm really sorry to say this to all of you, because I know you probably work really hard and you probably don't make a lot of money, but if I ran my classroom like you guys are running this commission and this planning board, and you don't even know what's going on, I mean, I just say shame on you. I mean, that's a pity. Sorry.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak to this? Second call? Final call? Well, I hear no thundering herd. I see no rising cloud of dust. Therefore, this public hearing is closed. Now, Mr. Geller, do you wish to deliver a summary statement?
A very brief one. First, I want to ask those residents who are in attendance who would like the information, the details about the community hearing that we're going to hold at, I believe, the Griffin Center on the 20th. If you would like to come up and either give us a card or a piece of paper or anything with your email on it so we can notify you of the meeting. We take that very seriously. We would like the opportunity to continue the discussion with you. And if, you know, we'll take all of them and we'll send an email with the details and have you come out, and that's open to anybody. And, you know, if you hate the project, you're still welcome to please come and give us your thoughts. So I do want to say that. Secondly, I do want to be clear that we appreciate this opportunity to be heard. We appreciate hearing from the residents. We appreciate the questions that have been posed to us. My clients want to do the best project they can. We intend to listen to the input. A lot of good questions have been raised tonight. We're going to sharpen pencils and go back and look. We didn't create this. We didn't procure it. My clients purchased this property at the point when these changes were basically being finalized already. They bought it because this is what the city had said could be done, and they've tried to the degree possible to show every sensitivity. I hope, let me just say, look, I hear the people who've spoken. I hear them, and I hear that it's painful for people. I hope this project is approved. I would hate to think someone would come along who really cares about nothing more than maximizing. Is it possible that we're not going to get quite as much as we hope to sell these properties for? We certainly are going to have residents who have skin in the game and are going to pay their maintenance fees to keep this place beautiful. Nobody's going to spend money for a property like that and then let it sink into disrepair. People don't do that. We hope that we're going to be able to make this a real asset, both to the commercial and to the residential area. My clients are taking a substantial financial risk to do that. They have to get these prices, and they're leaving, quite frankly, a lot of money on the table because they wouldn't have to sell them for that much money if they were building 104 units at 130 feet tall. There would be a lot more money to make. Instead, because we're trying to be as sensitive as we can, they're not in it to lose money. We've tried to listen. We're going to continue to listen. We're going to listen not just to the community. We're going to listen to the comments we've gotten from people tonight. We ask you to vote to approve. We ask you to pass it along to the city council, to let us meet further with the residents. We ask you to do that because we're playing by the rules. We didn't set the rules, and we're doing our very best to make sure that in playing by those rules, we're not towing the line, we're not stepping on it, we're not doing anything other than trying to do the right thing in the context of what this piece of property is destined and designed by the city to be used for, and we're trying to do it in as sensitive a way as we can. We ask for your approval, and thank you all tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Geller. All right, at this time, we now commence commission discussion. And you're welcome to sit here and listen to the commissioners with their comments. They'll be read into the record, but I want you to understand that the public hearing is closed, and so you have no further input at this moment. All right, we'll start to my left, Ms. Belay.
Well, I took in consideration everything that everyone had to say from my colleagues on the board, most importantly from the community, the developers, of course, and you know, my opinion still stands. I think they should be allowed to continue to take criticism, constructive criticism from the community, and see where they can go with this project. And if after they've gone through the entire process and the community still disagrees, then by all means, you know, they'll just have to find somewhere else to build. But I would like to see what can be done with this project. I heard a couple people from the community mention something about townhomes, single-family homes, greenery. I know one of the gentlemen, I believe, I'm sorry, I missed your name, back here about the trees. I know you were saying something about, you named a few indigenous trees and certain species of trees, and certain greenery that they named that they would replace these trees with. I think that's a worthy discussion to have with the developers and the architect and the attorney, to see where they can go with that. I don't think that, and just kind of glancing through the 11 points, this is a very girthy document, and guys, I do implore you to go through it. There is quite a few points that I can see where their concerns lie. But as I stated before, I would like to see where this project can go if the community can have fair input. They have invited you all to, what was it, Grinnell's Park? Where did you? Griffin Park?
The Griffin Community
The
Center.
Griffin Community Center, okay. So they've invited you all there. Depending on my work schedule, I'll even try to attend myself just to hear what the feedback from the community is. I would also suggest that you speak with staff and find out what measures have been taken or will be taken to let the community know that this is going on, because I hear the consensus in the audience is that they were not properly notified. So we want to make sure that you exhaust all measures of notifying the community that this is going on. I love my community. I've been here all my life, and I do not want to see big business come in and just plop a bunch of developments in the community for the sake of innovation. So I definitely want to hear their input, and go as hard as you came tonight, because you definitely got my ear. So that's where I'm at with it.
You understand now, Ms. Belay, that you'll be asked to take a vote at some point.
Yes.
Which, are you leaning for or against?
I'm with the condition that the community will have fair
Well,
input.
that's separate. We don't control that. I just want you to understand that.
Well, I would like to see more options be available to the community as far as where this development can go. Like I said before, I heard some talk about townhouses. I heard some talk about scaling it down, maybe a few floors or a couple floors, minimizing some of the units or lessening some of the units. So that would be one of my conditions, or the main condition that
As well, you understand that the issue before us is to grant the additional housing.
I do.
And so,
But it's
when it comes to a vote here, are you leaning for or against?
Well, let me confirm, because the way it was presented is that the bonus units or the bonus feeders, so on. So that was given or granted, or that they're here to get granted, was going to be used for the bike racks and the greenery and all that, the other stuff, and not actual units, correct?
No, you're missing the point entirely.
So could you come back and clarify then? Is that possible?
No, you have to go now on what's been presented, and use your own recollection and understanding
Well,
of what you've heard.
how I understood it, that's what it was for. That was in addition to
The bike racks and things would be,
in addition to that.
but they're looking for the 67 units is what they're looking for.
In addition to
Those are amenities.
whatever,
Yeah.
and it would take them up to the 90,
No, it wouldn't. They're capped at 67 under this proposal.
and then they're looking to go up to.
No, that's what they would be allowed to theoretically if they redesigned the project for a taller building. So, and what I'm looking for as chairperson is whether you're leaning for or against.
I'm leaning for it. I just said it.
Okay, fine.
With that.
All right, very good. All right, Mr. James?
Yeah, I did hear a lot of people in the community say they had issues getting notified. I mean, can staff confirm that notifications were sent out, per standard procedures?
Mail notice wasn't sent because it's not a requirement. However, it was posted in the Herald, and then the tear sheet is attached for the agenda. And then also the property was posted at least 2 weeks before the meeting.
Okay, so whoever went past the site, they could have seen that there was going to be a public.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So
I apologize. I guess I can't ask any questions to staff.
Yes, you can ask the staff. What we can't have is the public yelling out, okay? I understand that, folks, but
So-
this is a question from commission to staff.
Yeah, because I want to get, I would like to get the, factual information and, so.
It's on November 23rd, if you see that. I was
November
posted
23rd.
in the
It was
Herald.
posted on the property.
No, in the Herald, and then also, and then we had at least 10 days before the meeting, the applicant came and to post the property.
Okay, so.
As required by code.
As required by code,
Yeah.
there was a notice posted on the site 10 days before this hearing.
And then on November 23rd, it was posted in the Herald.
It was posted in the Herald.
Yeah.
Okay, that's typical with most applications
Yes.
that comes to the planning commission. So if anyone is stating that there was no notification on the property 10 days before, they are incorrect.
I mean, no, we don't have it like this. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, with this
Okay.
process can be, you can tweak it to
Okay.
have
So-
like,
All right, so they-
pictures taken, on the day, to show that everything.
Got you. So just like any other thing that comes to planning commission, this was properly notified.
Yes.
Okay. I noticed a lot of residents said that they had concern about the LOI and the staff report matching. Me personally, I'm a professional engineer for the state of Florida. I've written many letters of notification or letters of intent.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an issue, but I'm interested in hearing what the applicant has to say about that.
I contacted the city. We had some drafts of it that we submitted. The city provided some information as to some of the technical details they were looking for to us. I incorporated that into my letter. It was not the city adopting anything that we had said. If anything, the reverse, to be sure that we were not missing anything technical. So I thank the city staff for helping us to make sure that the application covered all the points it needed to, but the notion that they were adopting our submission is just not correct.
Okay. And that letter of intent was, excuse me, sir, that letter of intent was provided at the time of application?
We revised it. There was a revised letter. We provided a letter of intent originally, and then we provided a revised letter of intent later.
When was that? Once the staff report was.
Excuse me?
Once the staff report and staff has already working on the staff report and then communication with the attorney. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And is there, well, I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Now, I did hear a lot of things about there's some type of conflict with the zoning, with what the applicant is asking for. There's over 100% something increase in density, and that the R2 does not allow for it.
No, as currently written, the NRO, this is what the NRO allows, up to 90 dwelling to the acre and then the height. And yes, in the underlying is the R2.
Correct.
And then if you go, we're gonna go to Article 4, Division 5. I would specifically what the code says about the NRO verbatim. So, give me 1 second. Art overlay. PU. Section 4305, Neighborhood Development Overlay District. B, effect of overlay. The development standards of the underlying zoning district shall govern except to the extent any provision of this NRO district conflicts with the provision of an underlying zoning district, and in such event, the provision of this NRO district shall control.
So even though there's an underlying R2 residential zoning, it seems as though many people who spoke about it, they were only looking at the provisions and development requirements and restrictions that are under the R2 district, but they failed to recognize that once it's an NRO, it pretty much trumps anything in the underlying district. So that's not correct. Okay. I just wanted to correct that as well. With the trees, I did hear that there's, it seems like there's some residents who, I'm not a landscape architect, but I know a little bit about it. And there were concerns about some of the existing vegetation. Now I know certain municipalities, generally what it is they'll look at what you have, whatever material you have, you try to provide the same equivalent tree canopy on your proposed plans. However, if you're not able to accommodate that on your site, that you can mitigate. Now, what are the forms of mitigation that the city of North Miami offer?
Yeah, it's essentially as with any application, no, even when you go to Durham and when you come to the city,
Right.
I mean, we have to do a tree survey to see what's on the property. Once we have that and you determine the canopy, the trees that's going to be affected by the development, and if they cannot, relocate them on site or somewhere else, they would have to mitigate. And there's a provision in the code that allows that tree preservation, Article 5, Division 23, and then they would have to mitigate for the canopy loss. You have to replace that.
Okay. And if you can't fit it on site, you can put it anywhere within.
You can anywhere in the city where
within the city.
part of the city have a street tree management plan, and there's
Correct.
also a bank or tree bank where you can do your monetary donation in lieu of.
Okay.
And
all
where the city can then plant those trees wherever, identifying the street tree master plan an area that are
correct. And so whoever does the site assessment of the existing trees, it still has to come to our consultants and our arborists before our arborist has to accept whatever the proposed landscaping plans are showing.
Yeah,
it's not
definitely.
just what the
no,
applicant
it's not by
said.
right. They have to come in to meet with the approval of the city.
Okay. The issue with the condos, I guess there's a lot of concern about, whether or not the applicant's gonna end up getting certain amounts of monies for, he has an ideal what he's gonna get for his unit, and there's some concerns that he may not get it, and that this is gonna go from condo to rental properties. Is that allowed by code?
It's not a zoning issue. This is we don't look at the tenure of those buildings. We look at whether or not, from a land use standpoint, they can have what they propose in terms of design standard, dimensional standards, and what the code allows. Now, I mean, there will be an HOA doc that will be, of course, reviewed by our city attorneys, and then maybe if the city is in any issue with selling those property, they can maybe have a covenant. I mean, that's other instrument, but really, for the purpose of this exercise, we cannot.
Correct, because that has nothing to do with what's being requested from this board today.
Exactly.
And that's really out of our control.
Exactly.
Because realistically, the applicant could have come here without any plan at all, right?
I mean, yeah, they can. Because
Without
basically
showing
they're
anything.
requesting the units, but that's why we call them conceptual plans. Because again, as the attorney on the other side stated, you don't want to finalize your plans not knowing how many units you're going to build. So this is all contingent upon the approval. I mean, if now there was a denial, maybe they come up with an alternative proposal reducing the units. So therefore, you can see those renderings because basically it's typical. They can just cut one floor or two, whatever. But as far as the final plans, because this is just conceptual, and you've seen other projects who came here not with plan as detailed as that, for this type of application.
That's good. Okay. Yeah. Traffic concerns. So what's been presented to us is just a typical trip generation study.
Yeah.
Is the assumption is that hearing all these concerns and where it seems like there's a lot of local traffic that gets cut off, and there's some thoroughfares you can't access. Will it be a requirement that the
A full
applicant
traffic
provide
study.
a full traffic study?
Yeah, before, yeah.
Which will evaluate all the corridors of concerns.
Yes.
That the
yes.
the community has.
Yes.
Because to me, that
No,
seems like
that's
pretty-
relevant. Yeah, that's a legitimate concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Visibility issues. I mean, I don't know if this is this something. Visibilities for dissimilar or different land uses amongst that are right adjacent to each other. Is that more of a zoning issue? Does this code even speak about
I mean,
that?
when you have dissimilar land uses, it's a matter of buffering. See the buffering. That's why we talk about the wall providing a wall, or I mean, you can even add on a hedge as well to make it avoid the blank wall. But yeah, that's the what you have to propose between dissimilar land use. Adequate buffer.
So yeah, I'm sorry. Let me specify. So for the heights, I guess for the differentiation in heights. So that's the first time I guess a resident brought something up to me that I never really thought about because I live in high rise. So
And the way the code is written, right now, if you adjust it, let's say to a low-lying structures that you're saying or families, then in your building is over 35 feet, and that's why a 25-foot setbacks is required.
Okay, because the idea is that
I
the
mean,
further you set back, the less visibility that
exactly.
somebody has in the higher elevations to see
Because it could have been, you know, as a typical, you know, 10% of the width, even on the side setback, just 10% of the width of the frontage of the property, side. However, because if it's over 35 feet, then the building has to be set back 25.
Even more.
Yeah.
Which is why it's probably put right now on the conceptual is why it's pushed so much
Exactly.
to the north.
Yeah.
Okay. That was already just, I believe, those are the main concerns that I had.
Yes, sir.
Mr. James, are you leaning for or against?
As it stands, I mean, staff has given me some sense of assurance that, you know, the site plan, because most of the comments that I see are coming up are more, are they not related to what's being, you know, requested from us as a board to judge or to decide on, or more zoning issues with the site plan. Because I mean, obviously I have tons of concern with site because I don't see how some of it's going to work, but that's not what I feel is being requested of us. Right now, what's being requested of us is the units and the conditional use, and so I'm leaning more in support of the project.
All right, Mr. Pashon.
When was this land purchased?
I believe it was the end of June, sir.
In June?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
The 30th, I think.
So, several people have listed concerns about, it seems like a very expensive piece of property with HOAs and purchased parking and $250,000. And I guess the financial impact study said upwards to $350 for a 900 square foot unit. So those prices may come down, and then there's a concern about rentals and a concern. A friend lives in the Grand downtown, 880 units, luxury apartments, condos, all condos. 40% of those are in the Airbnb pool right now. So they have a real problem inside their own building. Now, I think this is an R2 zoning, and short-term rentals are illegal in the city of North Miami in R1 and R2 neighborhoods. So that would be a problem for the developer if I don't know who's responsible for that then. So if that became a problem.
I mean, if you allow me, sir. Yeah, the underlying is R2, even though the code say, you know, if there's conflict, then the NR will supersede. But since there's no requirement, no, that's what I'm saying, to your point. There seems to be no conflict with, because the NR doesn't have any provision against that. So therefore, you know, you're right, you know, the R2 provisions prohibiting, you know, the Airbnb.
Would stand.
Would stand, yes.
Yes.
I would argue.
Unless you rezoned it, which is not what's being requested here. Exactly. My bigger problem is I don't think parking works at all. I think we're trying to put 5.5 gallons of water in a 5-gallon bucket. And when you look at the site plan, and I know it's conceptual, but Jason brings up the point of how do fire trucks get in? Another neighbor brings up the point of how do garbage trucks get in? The question was answered, well, we have tandem parking, but everybody doesn't get 2 spots, so somebody's going to be sharing spots with their neighbor. I mean, just the way this whole thing is laid out, I think it's awkward. It may look pretty. We're in need of development, but my comments earlier where we're dropping this in the middle of a quiet residential neighborhood, and we've got to be sensitive to a lot of things, and I think people are going to be parking on everybody's swale up and down the street. I think the residents are going to be parking on people's swale, much less the guests. I think short-term rentals, we're going to have code enforcement over there every day. I think the traffic congestion, the trip generation report doesn't answer the problems with traffic. I mean, it just talks about numbers of trips. I think fire trucks, garbage trucks, all of those things. There's 2 elevators in the building for 67 people. I'm assuming one of them's a freight elevator. I would hope to God it would be. And then, I mean, it's just, this is an interesting idea, but I don't think it's baked. This cake is still not baked yet. So I have problems with the project because I think it's impossible that it turns out like we're talking about today. And part of that problem is 67 units. That is what's being requested. And because we have 67 units, the parking is a problem. With less units, 90 units might work. I don't know what that number would be, but it certainly might work. And there would be more space to be able to have emergency vehicles and garbage trucks that get out of the neighbor's front yard.
So I think that the density in this property, while it may be allowed or even greater, I don't think it works. So I'm not a big fan of this project.
All right, thank you, Bob. Now to my right, Mr. Ernst.
Thank you, Mr.